Hello, and welcome to UPlift Black. I'm Courtney Peters, the managing director. Today, I'm the host, and if you can tell, we're wearing the same clothes. We just swapped chairs. So UPlift Black is a movement to increase the visibility and showcase contributions of Black people living in Canada. On today's episode, we have our founder and president, Shelly Skinner.
Yay. Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So
I love it.
let's just jump straight into it. Can you tell us where your family comes from, where you're born, where you grew up?
So both of my parents were immigrants, so they came from Trinidad and Tobago. And so I'm a first generation Canadian. And I grew up in Toronto, and about halfway through grade school, I moved to Brampton, Ontario, and I lived in Brampton right through grade school and high school, and then couldn't wait to get out. And I love Brampton, but at the time, it was a little stifling for a queer girl like me.
So you said both your parents were immigrants. What was that kind of experience? So like my father was also an immigrant when I was born, but I grew up with my like white side of the family who they wouldn't look at them as immigrants, even though like my mom's second generation Canadian, stuff like that. So what was it like having two immigrant parents in the household and then like being in Brampton as well?
Well, it just felt like I was in Trinidad, but in Toronto, or in Trinidad, but like in Brampton. Like, you know, our lives were kind of still wrapped around our Trinidadian culture. Like we were involved in Caravana, and we, you know, ate mostly, you know, Trinidadian cuisine. And a lot of our family and friends were from the islands. You know, the music was always calypso playing in the house, typically. Like, you know, we were a very proud Trinidadian family. And I mean, like, we also a very proud Canadian family. Like we loved that we were in Canada, but you could always tell with my parents that their hearts were in Trinidad. And it's no surprise that they're both retired back there now. But it was just kind of one of those things that it was just so clear that they loved their country, and there was a little bit always missing for them being here. And I think that people forget why people come to Canada. It's typically for a better life, but it's not necessarily because they believe Canada is better. So there's a difference, right? You know, so there's, you know, a lot of poverty on the islands, a lot of opportunity on the islands. So if you wanted to, you know, raise a family, especially if you were Black on the islands, you know, the opportunities were a lot less for you because, you know, colorism exists within the islands, and you know, Black people are still not necessarily respected as much as the Indian cultures and white cultures that live within the West Indies. So you know, for my parents, it was just an opportunity to move forward and live a better life, but their hearts still lived there, and I always sensed that sadness for them, that they weren't there, they weren't living their best life in Trinidad. And I also always felt a disconnect because I did not have the same kind of experiences. Like my life was rooted in Canada. And outside of my home, I was Canadian, right? And everywhere I went, you know, I was Canadian, and my school systems and education and experiences and you know, pop culture, like, was all rooted in Canada. So there was, you know, it was really great. But I loved the fact that I still had that connection to the West Indies, and I did wear it very proudly when I was young. When people would ask me, you know, where, you know, who I am, I would say Trinidadian, even though I wasn't. I was actually Canadian. But that's kind of what you do when you're especially if your parents are first generation, you're gonna automatically like be like, oh, you know, when people ask you where you're from, that's a lot of times what they're asking you, especially if you are non-white in this country. Like people want to know, you know, where do you come from? That is because they clearly, like, you can't be Black and be from Canada. And to me, at a young age, I didn't necessarily see that as a microaggression.
Okay.
I saw that as, oh yeah, we're just loving our cultures and our experiences, but I didn't realize that a lot of the time, especially when it came from white people, it was a microaggression in terms of, like, you clearly can't be from here if you are non-white, or your family can't be from here if you're non-white. There wasn't a lot of people that I knew in Brampton that were Canadian Black. So most of the Black people I knew were from the islands, right? And then, except for the few people that we also knew that were from Africa as Black as well. So, I didn't really know a lot of people from the States that were Black or like that lived in my area, or Canadian like through and through. So I also didn't fully understand what Black Canadian history was. A lot of the history that we talked about in our family was West Indian culture, West Indian history. And then in school, clearly, there was no talk of Black history. So I didn't understand that. I didn't know anything about Indigenous history. I kind of grew up very ignorant to those experiences within my own society.
And so you mentioned that you're queer, so you're in part of the queer community. What's your experience as...
I know a lot of people don't love that word, but I've reclaimed it.
Yeah. And that's why I used it for Shelly, because I know she likes that word. But what's your experience as a Black queer woman, and did you feel like welcomed into, like, because your parents were from Trinidad and stuff like that, and I know there's a stigma and there's a lot of discrimination within the Black community for the queer community. And so how was that experience for you, having to come out or tell people, like, how was that for you?
I didn't really claim my queer identity for a long time. A lot of the times I just assumed that my experiences and or feelings towards people of the same sex or who didn't conform to a cisgendered, people that I was interested in that weren't necessarily cisgender or another man or so. I didn't necessarily understand that was anything but experience, just going through youth experiences of sexuality, right? Like, I enjoyed kissing girls. I thought that was awesome, and, I really, really had some very complicated young relationships with the females in my life. And as I got older, I realized that there was always something entangled with it, and that was more than just friendship, that I don't think either of us really understood. Yet most of my high school life, I did consider myself bisexual. But I wasn't necessarily as out about it. It was just like if people asked me, I would say, yeah, I'm bi. Like, I like girls. So no big deal, right? But I had a boyfriend who, who was a cis male. So that was kind of, it for me in terms of queer culture or anything. And also it was not, there was, I think one gay guy that I knew of in high school. And I did not know really of any really queer girls at all. And I definitely didn't know anybody who was Black who was saying that they were gay or straight or gay or lesbian or anything like that. So it was a very difficult time to have that kind of self-realization of who it was that I was, because I didn't really have anybody to compare myself to. Yeah. Until my parents had two friends, and they were known. My parents would whisper, and the family would whisper about the fact that they were lesbians. Okay. And there was no problem with my parents were very open, very, very caring, very open people when it came to these kinds of things. So to them, they were just like, yeah, they're lesbians. But when I would speak to these women, they would tell me they were just roommates. Right? And I would stay at their house and I'd play with their daughter, and they would make it very clear that they had separate rooms. Like, to them, it was very important that me as a child did not know their relationship status. Right? And I did know. And I always thought that was like, I don't understand why they just don't tell me that they love each other. Like, I just didn't really get that. But I realize now that it wasn't, it was their fear of how I would respond, or as I'm sure my parents would respond. Would they want their kid to go to the house if they knew they were lesbians or this and that? But it's like everybody kind of knew, but just nobody talked about it, right? So there was still that shame that was rooted within, and they were both Black too. Yeah. So it was that shame that was rooted within being queer and being Black that I experienced that kept me kind of a little bit closed-mouthed onto what I was experiencing and feeling. But I always had crushes on girls. Like most of my like like my hardcore like crush, like Angelina Jolie hackers, like hell yeah. Like I was like, yes. Like that period of her, I was obsessed. Okay. Obsessed. I grew up being obsessed with her. And I just didn't know why nobody really understood that was clearly I liked girls then. I don't know. But that was my life. And so it wasn't until I kind of just hit a place of just recognizing that my life wasn't necessarily going in the way that I wanted it to, and I wasn't able to really be me, that I started to kind of search for something different. And theater was always a way that always had the weird kids, right? Always had the kids that were just a little bit different. And if people were queer or gay, like they didn't necessarily say it, but you kind of knew, and we kind of all, you know, we got along and we enjoyed each other. So to me, when I was going into post-secondary, I wanted to get into theater. I wanted to get into that world. But I grew up in Brampton, and that was happening in the city, right? So it was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get myself to the city, and then so I did, and I went to George Brown College for introduction to performing arts careers. And I was just like, oh my God, there's like so many different people, and everybody's like so open with their sexualities, and there's people who are identifying, you know, not necessarily, if we use the word back then, non-binary, but they were just like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to say that I'm male or female. Like I just don't, I don't believe I need to live within that lines. And it was just really cool to just kind of meet all these people, and I just started feeling like finally, like I'm being claimed. We talked about that with you, right? Like, so my claiming didn't happen within the Black community. It happened within the queer community.
And how old are you?
I was probably 19 at that time, 19, 20. Yeah. So it was, and I'm 39 now. So this is 20 years ago. Yeah. Right? So we're talking different times. And it was just, it was the first time I felt like I could be me fully. And, I didn't feel like anybody in my life outside of that school understood me. You know, I felt like as soon as I would go back home, as soon as I would visit family, that like I was stifled who I was, because we just, you know, I don't know if I ever really truly believed that they would accept me as for who I am, or if it was just the fact of my fear of being so open, you know. And the only time I did kind of talk about the fact that I believed I was queer, they would kind of say, but you're with a guy, so, and they would just kind of push that aside as that can't be truth, because the reality too was there was only gay and you know, males and lesbian females. Like you could not exist in the in between. Back then, if you did, you know, people, you know, were very judgy, both within the queer community and within the straight community. On that. So the fact that I could have an interest or in a male, and how can I possibly be gay? So that was kind of, you know, so that really rocked me a lot, because I was never validated within those things.
No, and that's really hard to not feel validated. So a question that you kind of asked me is, when were you comfortable in your own skin? Because like for you, like for me, I just had to deal and handle with like being Black and being white and wanting to honor both sides of me. I'm a cis woman, I'm straight, so I don't have that extra layer that you had to deal with being in the queer community. And I already know that regardless of what color you are, that label alone is hard for anyone. So like adding that to you're a beautiful Black woman, you're queer, when did you feel comfortable accepting both or more than one realities for you?
Last year.
Yeah.
When I cut my hair off.
Why did you cut your hair off? Because I've cut my hair off too. Why did you cut yours off?
So hair relaxer. We can talk about. I mean, you're going to find out with our organization that Uplift Black Hair is part of our projects, because it is it's needed within the Black community for us to feel a love for our natural hair, or our hair in general, because we were taught for a long time that straight hair is professional.
Yes.
Straight hair is more beautiful. So the straighter the better. And because of that, and my mom, so what people don't know is that my side of the family, I'm also mixed.
Okay.
So as much as I am a proud Black woman, I do hold true to the fact that I am not 100% Black. I am Black, Indian, Chinese. Like I've got a lot of mixtures. Like my grandfather is from India, my mom's side. And so my mom's family was like she grew up very Indian. In that Indian culture. And a lot of that was brought into our home as well. But because she was so mixed with Indian, her hair was very different than ours. And she married a mostly Black Negro man. So so her kids' hair was a lot more black in texture. And she didn't know how to handle it. She didn't know how to do it at all. So how to like work with black hair. So she was told what everybody in the industries, like the salons and all that stuff, like especially in black hair salons, they would say, oh, you know, just relax your hair and then it'll be manageable. So they would put chemical relaxer on our hair. And I don't know if you've ever done chemical relaxers.
But 10 for me.
Yeah, I think I was probably less than that, maybe about 8, I think, when I first got my first relaxer done. And I loved it because everybody said to me, holy, I walked out of the salon and they were like, oh, you're so beautiful. Like, oh my God, they made such a big deal. So how could you as a child not think that you were not beautiful before the salon, but now that you've come out of the salon, now you're beautiful. So that stuck with me my whole life. So I could never really feel comfortable in my black skin because I was never taught to be comfortable in my black skin or my black hair, like any of my black aesthetics. You know, I also was probably the darkest skinned person within my family, both sides.
Okay.
So there was a lot of comments about my dark skin. I would have even my grandmother who would say, you're so beautiful for a dark skinned girl.
Yeah.
Like for a dark-skinned girl, I was pretty, right? So I lived with a lot of self-hatred.
Yeah.
That most people would not have been able to see as self-hatred because I was very like, you know, not afraid to be, you know, I was in theater, so I was always out there, and I just wore what I wanted to wear, and I acted the way I wanted to act. So I guess the people, it felt like confidence, but it was more defiance than confidence.
Yeah.
I think I've lived my life in a lot of defiance and not confidence, and people have taken that as confidence.
Yeah.
But it's it's quite the opposite. And it's only really in the last year when I finally just started, I was on Instagram and everybody was posting about like trust the process. Like trust the process was a very important part of this hair movement. And I was like, what do you mean trust the process? And they were all chopping their relaxed hair off. And they were growing in their natural hair. And they were saying, like, this is your crown, wear your crown with pride. And I was like, I want to wear my crown with pride. I don't want to do this to myself anymore. I don't want to walk into hair salons and, you know, like any salon that isn't a black and people, you know, say, oh, sorry, we don't do relaxers or we can't handle your hair. Like I was tired of kind of that experiences. I was tired of going into black hair salons and still them only knowing how to relax my hair or braid it. And I just want to wear my hair curly, but like it's not really curling the way it should because I had chemically relaxed my hair for so long. And it was such a frustrating feeling, and just like the time it would take to get dressed and get ready in the morning. Like the reason why black people are late is because we're doing our hair. Like it's just like I don't know if they recognize that, but like I've shaved at least 10 minutes off 15 minutes off my day, not every day now, not having to worry about this hair. The biggest thing is that I looked into the mirror for the first time, terrified of what I was going to see when I opened my eyes, when I cut my hair off. And I opened my eyes and I was shocked at a beautiful woman that stood in front of me. And because it was nothing like anybody told me I was going to experience or think or feel.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'm actually not that bad looking. You know, my skin is kind of nice and my hair looks nice and my face is nice shaped. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I think I can do this. And then I would go out and I started getting attention, but different kind of attention. So I'll explain that. When my hair is straight and long, I get a lot of male attention. A lot of white male attention.
Yes.
A lot of anybody who isn't Black male attention when my hair is straight. When my hair is curly and natural, I get a lot of compliments from women that are genuine. They're not rooted in anything sexual or wanting to seem. It was just like, girl, you're gorgeous. You're beautiful. You're radiant.
Yes.
So it was kind of one of those things that it was just like, you know, the attention it was the attention that I finally needed in my life. Yes. Because I think we talked a little bit about being sexualized as Black women, right? And that I experienced that significantly in my life because I was also I was also very comfortable in my sexuality. Yes. In terms of just, especially when I recognized that I was queer, I started saying, okay, I'm not gonna be afraid of all the things that make me a sexual human being. You know, I'm gonna be proud of those things. So that allowed a lot of people to sexualize me. And then, so now all of a sudden it was just like, no, I just think you're gorgeous. I just think that you're radiant. I love your smile. And what they were seeing was my actual true self-love and confidence that was radiating more than anything else. And it was just really nice. So it really helped me fall in love with myself. Yeah. That kind of, you know, it was the difference between being 8 years old and somebody being like, oh, great, you've just spent $100 on your hair to straighten it and make it look more white. And you're beautiful now because of it, as opposed to, oh my God, like you're just finally a woman who is in love with herself and confident enough to just be who she is. And I'm seeing that, and that's beautiful. And that was something that just changed my life.
Yeah, that self-love glow, like it radiates and like people are more drawn to you. And like, for instance, like I can feel that through you, and that helps me with my self-love. And like when people love themselves and like, they're like, I don't care. Like it's taken me, for instance, 30 years to be comfortable with my afro. Yeah. And like now I'm like, yeah, look at my afro. Thanks. But I was never like that. So that self-love is so important, and it like changes and like just how you feel. Like when you saw yourself, you're probably like, oh, that's actually how I look. Yeah. That's actually who I am.
And that's exactly how I look. Yeah. Like I can go into the water now and get up and still look the same as I did before I got into the water, you know, and I'm not afraid of rain anymore. And, you know, like I actually am not afraid of swimming and being in water sports. One of my favorite things to do, which you know, is paddleboard and like, and being able to be so close to the beach, where something like that 10 years ago would literally ruin me, because I'd be like, I can't go paddleboarding and go to a meeting an hour later because I have to spend 2 hours straightening my hair before I get to that meeting. So it was just, you know, so like I changed everything. Like I couldn't enjoy life. Yeah. I couldn't enjoy heat. Right? It was devastating. One time I was at Pride in Toronto, and like it was like pouring rain, and I had just done all this work to straighten my hair.
Oh, I know that.
But it was so much fun, and I had such a great time, but all I can think about the whole time was my hair is ruined, and you know, and everybody wants to go to this other event after this one, and I'm going to have to go home and straighten my hair before I even go out again. Like it was so debilitating, like in terms of just like your experiences when you live in that mindset of self-hate. Yes. So it's been a freeing experience.
And the thing about self-hate is that people don't always see that from the outside. Like they're like, oh, you're confident, oh, you're beautiful, oh, you got this, you're so strong. And you're just like,
oh, the strong comment for Black women, right? Like, so therefore, because we have literally had to, you know, crawl on our hands and knees to survive. In the society that we live in, you know, it makes us resilient to a certain extent. And yes, it makes us seem strong, but we still bleed, we still cry, we still have pain. And when we experience, you know, prejudices and racism and like microaggressions about who we are as people, like if we are confident in what we say, then we are aggressive. If we are leaders, then we are bossy. You know, if we are upset, then we are crazy. We are hysterical. You just can't even live in your own emotion without it being judged. And it's exhausting.
If I'm not crying, if I'm not angry, what's wrong with me? Like you can't win.
Yes, exactly. And if you stay stoic as possible and don't show emotion, then she's cold. It's just you just can't even experience anything, and it's Yeah, it's an exhausting feeling. It is exhausting. And I think that as much as I want to, I always do find myself telling my other sisters, like, stay strong.
Yeah.
And then I want to be like, I shouldn't have said that. So I know I've got to find another word. So
Yeah.
I think I should say, I got you. I hear you.
I'm here.
See you. I'm here. You know, don't stop. I say don't stop probably more now than anything else, because I know that it is so hard to do the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
And there are times that you just want to give up, or you just get so defeated.
Yeah.
Or you're talking to somebody that you love that and trying to explain to them why you are doing what you do, and they're not understanding, and you just think to yourself, like, do I not deserve to just live a peaceful life? Is that not okay?
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So I think it's, saying strong is a hard word, but I think that it's still important part of what we have to do to continue.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
And we can talk about all this for days and days and days.
I know.
And you guys, we've been talking this since we've met. And like we met June 4th, and like look at us now.
Yeah, this is
Hello,
like we're
Uplift
filming.
Black.
Yeah, like a month and a half later, we've got an organization, we've got a movement, we've got something really incredible happening here. And like I met you, Courtney, and I want to say that it was the first time I met somebody in this community, like immediately, and said, okay, she is me, you know, in your heart and your soul. It felt like such a natural connection, and I'm so glad that we're on this journey together. And I mean, like, there's so much more that we can talk about, and I'm sure we'll have more times that we will have conversations, but like, make sure we're on our websites and read a little bit more about our stories. Follow our blogs. Courtney's gonna be doing lots of blogging for Uplift Black, so that we've got so many stories. We're meeting such incredible people, and they can't always be on the show for whatever reason. So we still want to highlight them. So we're gonna do that.
Excellent. Okay, so let's wrap up this with some fun questions.
Oh yeah.
Speed round.
Oh, I hate these ones, but okay, I'll do it.
Okay. What's your favorite drink?
Oh, wine. Red wine. That's easy.
What was your favorite TV show as a child?
Cosby Show.
Ooh, yes.
I know.
Who's your favorite character?
Rudy, because
I was gonna say that
because everybody thought I looked like Rudy. Well, and that's the only thing that made me like. She was the only young black like person on television, and it just so I really resonated. I was like, yeah, I could be like, and it made me feel like I could be like her. Like she actually was. Like made me feel like I could be on TV, and that was like my really young years. But then like if I'm gonna like a very very close second is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But that was like my older years.
Yeah, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Will Smith and Uncle Phil do the dad scene. Like, why does he want me? That broke me because I've had those moments. I wanted to be daddy's little girl. I used to wait by the window. But yes, okay, dead, alive, imaginary or fictional. Who would you have for dinner?
That is a really hard one. There's so many incredible people out there doing incredible work. Michelle Obama.
Ooh, nice.
Michelle Obama. She is, I feel a lot like she has her words, when they go low, you go high.
Yeah.
A lot of people have gone really low in my life, and I've had to keep my head above just to stay high. And it's been very difficult, but you know, reading about Becoming and watching her documentary and following her life, she is a classy, incredible, badass, proud Black woman, and yeah.
Okay, final question. Call for action. What do you want the future to look like? What's your world going to look like? What are you calling to action?
Activism. I had an experience where I really tried to go the other route and do the political, follow all the rules. And I was shown that sometimes you've got to work against the system that has, you have to work against the system that has oppressed you, and find other ways to make change. And fund your activist, because politicians, parties, our government system are very well funded. And all of that money is going to continue to oppress Black people in this community, Indigenous people in Canada. And the only way that we're going to change is to fund people who are going to make change. And those are your activists. Those are your movers and shakers. Those are the people who are creating platforms for change. They need your support. They need your time. They need your money. Because money makes the world go round, and unless they're able to get into schools and pay for that to become lawyers and to become judges, and if we don't have people in our community in high positions, high-ranking positions to get the job done, then we're not going to make change in our community. So we need to start being radical.
And I've noticed lately, a lot of people oh, the system's broken, the system's broken. You guys, let's get it straight. The system is not broken. It's never been broken. The system is operating the way it was designed to work.
Yeah.
So it's not the system's broken. We need to
change
the system. It's never been broken. It's beautifully operating the way that they intended it to operate. We're all just realizing how messed up that system is.
Yeah.
Well, some of us has realized a lot earlier before than others, but more at the table at least these days. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Shelly's call to action is activism, to support your activist people. Activism isn't for everyone, but everyone can help support activism. And so...
And it's not a negative word either.
No, it's not negative at all.
I think that's a lot of people hear that word activist and they think anarchy. They think bringing down, the Berlin Wall. Okay, yeah. It is that, but it is also the small little things that people are doing in their community to make change, and we need to normalize that word and recognize it as somebody who is powerful if they can go against the norm and fight for better for people. It's about love.
Yeah, and a famous person that the world loves, Nelson Mandela. He's an activism. What he did in that jail cell, that was activism.
Yeah.
So until next time, continue to share, support, and show up.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.